What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back with another preview video for week 2 of the Autumn Internationals. This one is going to be for Italy versus New Zealand. It's going to be a really tough game for Italy going ahead. For anyone who hasn't seen these preview videos before, what we do is we chuck a game of Rugby 20 on the background of the teams that are going to be playing, and then over the top we talk about the official teams announced, who we think is going to do well, who we think is going to do badly, and finally give a score prediction for the game. So, without further ado, let's get this game kicked off and underway. Alrighty guys, Tommaso Alan is going to get us kicked off and underway. We'll start off to the left with a bit of wind behind us. Not that we'll be seeing Tommaso Alan particularly for a lot of these games, most likely, as Garbisi tends to start for Italy nowadays. So Italy versus New Zealand. This is a game that we will be seeing eventually at the World Cup. It's a game Italy are going to be wishing they weren't seeing at the World Cup, no doubt. And it's going to be a real testing game for them coming up this weekend. Let's start off talking about New Zealand first of all. So New Zealand, of course, are having an absolute stormer of a year, I think it's fair to say. I think coming away with only one that wasn't a win, that was against South Africa in their Southern Hemisphere Championship. They beat Australia twice, they beat Argentina twice, they were beaten South Africa in one of those games. They've demolished Tonga by over 100 points. They demolished the USA, scoring 100 points on them as well. And then finally we went on to last week where we got to see New Zealand play Wales, which I actually got to go see. I did a vlog for that on the channel. For anyone who wants to go back and watch that at some point, feel free to go check that out and check out some live rugby as it was going on. But safe to say New Zealand came away with quite a resounding win in that game as well. They didn't really get tested too much. They got to put out a pretty strong team, to be fair, for New Zealand. It was quite high end considering Wales were putting on a bit of a B team. It was surprising to see New Zealand go with such a hard team, but they came away in that game. I think it was a 38-point difference in that game. It was well and truly over, and Wales didn't really help themselves out with some of the line-out issues they had. So looking forward to this game. New Zealand are going to dumb down their team a little bit. They're going to put, I mean, even a second string for New Zealand is still a very good team with a lot of very good players in, but there's been an awful lot of changes from that Wales team. So we'll check the team on screen for you guys, and we can have a cheeky little look through here. So starting off with this front row, George Bower, Dane Coles, and Tyrrell Lomax. So we know a couple of these players playing last week. Dane Coles is such a good player. I really like him. He's doing really well. The mauling for New Zealand didn't really get going a lot in the game against Wales. There was definitely a couple of times where you thought maybe we could have seen a bit more of the mauling system going on. New Zealand were just more than happy to play open play and broken play. So we didn't really get to see a lot of it, but that New Zealand forward pack tends to be quite massive and quite huge and have the power behind them. Wales were pretty much also trying to avoid that by not letting their own lineouts turn into mauls at some point. So I'm sure they'll probably be looking forward to this game. They'll try and open this game a bit as well, so we might not see too many mauls in this game either, although we do know Italy like a good maul when they can get it, so we'll see how they get on. Moving backwards towards the lock departments, Tupou Vai, who actually had a nice little bit of impact on the game at one point, and Josh Lord. Josh Lord is not someone I know at all, considering I've seen a couple of the Super Rugby Aotearoas. Not a name I know. I was quite surprised, actually. I feel like I know quite a lot of names now in this New Zealand team. I'm slowly getting more versed in some of the Southern Hemisphere rugby, so it'll be interesting to see how Josh Lord gets on. Into that back row then, Luke Jacobson, Sam Kane coming back in, taking over the captaincy role. No Sam Whitelock this year, as we see a terrible drop goal from Tommaso Alan in the background here. And finally that number 8 shirt, Hoskins Sotutu, who's playing good rugby and has been for the last year or so. I've been quite enjoying to see Hoskins Sotutu on the pitch. So a lot of switches in this front 8, to be fair now. So Wales, of course, a big team, a lot of heavy players. Their scrum wasn't working as much as you expected, and to be honest, I don't think New Zealand needed to put on the team they did to beat Wales in that scrum so much. Italy, even in the Six Nations, struggle a little bit with some of the scrums and stuff. It's one of their main key areas. They try and win scrums, and if they can win the lineouts, they definitely try and use the maul as much as they can. Tends to be how a lot of their tries come about, is a 5-metre maul and sort of get over the line. I would say this was a lesser capped 1-8 from New Zealand, but it may well actually be heavier. There's a lot of very big lads in this set of 8 here, so depending on the weight issues, I'm not sure how the mauls will get on for Italy, but we'll see how they get on. Looking towards the backs a little bit more then. So Brad Weber and Richie Mwanga. This was a a combo I thought we might have seen against the Wales team, but of course Bowen and Barrett needed all those points, so they didn't really get to see a lot of Richie Mo'unga, unfortunately. But Brad Weber playing good rugby, to be fair. TJ Perenara and Aaron Smith have been that 1-2 for so long for them, but Brad Weber certainly beginning to make a bit more of an impact. The centre partnership, Quinn Tapia, who I believe plays with the Chiefs, because I think I've seen him a couple of times, and one thing that stands out to me is just the line breaks from him. It just seems to be really hard to tackle. He doesn't seem like the biggest guy in the world, but in terms of actually getting your hands on him and bringing him to ground, seems like a difficult one. So we'll be interested to see how he gets on. And Braden Ennor in that outside centre, who is rapid. He is so quick. I cannot believe he's not a winger. I don't know if he's ever played winger at some point. Any New Zealand subscribers maybe ought to tell me that. But he is so fast. And if you can get a little line break and get it offloaded to him, Italy may really struggle to catch him. A bar maybe Monty Ioani's probably the only person in that Italy side I really have gained for like a great burst of speed, but Braden Ennor will certainly run through them. And then that back three, then George Bridge, Severis and Damien McKenzie. So there's a bit more of a set three that we get to see in this New Zealand squad a little bit more. I think overall, 1 to 15, it's a very good squad, considering I would class this probably more towards the B team, New Zealand team. There's still some big names in there. I think the backs especially. There's a lot of these lads. I think Brad Weber, Tapia and Damien Kenzie all play at the Chiefs, don't they? So there's a bit of synergy in there, as well as, you know, a lot of these lads will have played together before. George Bridge is a hard man to stop on that wing. Severis just seems to score a try in every game. And Damien McKenzie might take over the kicking duties, but Richie Mo'unga, from what I've been seeing, has been doing superb in terms of breaking through lines, but also kicking towards to posts. Has really been landing a good percentage amount of kicks. So I think they're pretty sound for like penalties and conversions. So I think it's going to be a difficult day for Italy. They can't afford to pretty much give away any penalties in their own half, which is difficult, and Italy do have a bit of a tendency to give away penalties when put under big pressure. And we're just near half-time now, so of course we'll have to talk about some subs. I don't know if I'm going to have a lot of subs to do. We've probably got one here. We'll take one sub off. Looking at the New Zealand subs then. Amua De Groot, Offa Tuwunga Fassi, who's a big man. He'll be coming on at some point. Sam Whitelock, Shannon Frizzell, Finlay Christie, David Havili and Geordie Barrett. That's a big bench, in all honesty. I haven't actually really looked through this team before starting this video. That's a big bench. There's a lot of first-string players there. Shannon Frizzell is playing really good rugby. He doesn't get as many starts as you probably expect from that New Zealand, for what we've seen from the last year or so, and I think he's doing really well. I'm looking forward to seeing him. Finlay Christie, so they've definitely dropped down in terms of the scrum half route for them. They've tried to keep TJ Perenara and I don't even know if Aaron's missing the team. I haven't seen his name written down yet, actually. But they've got Ireland coming up next week. That's going to be a tough game. They're going to save a lot of their big boys for that one. Sam Whitelock will come on in that second half, no doubt, just to boost and bring a bit of captaincy. David Havili is a tough guy once he gets going. If he picks up a bit of speed, I think these Italian centres might have quite a tough day trying to deal with Havili. And then Geordie Barrett, your all-rounder, can play fly half, can play either wing, and can play fullback, as well as Damien McKenzie being able to move to the either wing and fly half as well if he really wanted to. So even if an injury is picked up anywhere in the field, that backfield is pretty well covered between Havili and Barrett. So, you know, in terms of a utility team, it's not the biggest team New Zealand could put out, but it's certainly a very, very strong team. They'll be happy with how this team's going to go. And to be honest, I can see New Zealand wanting to run away with this one a little bit. So, in order to discuss about score and stuff, we need to first look at this Italian team. So Italy, of course, unfortunately this year, again in the Six Nations, not coming away with any wins. It's becoming a bit of an issue, and the team is slowly beginning to take shape. It's just how much longer are we going to have to wait before they have an official team all set in. There's definitely periods of time now where I'm beginning to look at Italy and say they're being able to get away with some games. You know, the back players are beginning to actually get more tries. They're no longer just reliant on the forwards. They do have players coming now in the backs that can make stuff work. We've seen Benetton playing really good rugby, and you expect them to be able to translate that internationally. But it's just that step up is still eluding them. They still seem to be able to play the tier 2 teams pretty dominantly. One game that we are going to be looking forward to over the course of this autumn internationals is going to be the Italy-Argentina game. I think that'll be a really nice benchmark just to see where both of those two teams are at. But talking about this game, let's have a look at the Italy team. So starting off in this front row, Fischetti, Lucchesi and Riccioni. So it's a pretty standard front row, except no Bigi in that hooker position, which I'm sure will probably come on in that second half. But in terms of that, not having their captain in that starting half could be a big move. There's technically probably a bigger front row they could put on, but they've got to try and last. They've got to try and last the whole game against this New Zealand squad, because one thing we did see against Wales, if those scrums begin to go wrong, when it rains it pours, and New Zealand will just apply pressure, and it might be a little bit difficult to deal with. In the lock department, Marco Fusa and David Ceci. So again, a couple of names there that got a bit of experience now, slowly getting to grips a little bit more without the team. You can slowly begin to seeing shape now. For anyone who watched the preview videos, as we did in the Six Nations, you'll slowly begin to see a lot of these names going to start being repeated now. In the six, Sebastian Negri, nice to see him back in the team. Lamaro is going to be taking over the captaincy at 7, and Gia Marioli, which is a name I actually have no knowledge of. That'll be interesting. There's a new player coming in there for me personally. A lot of you guys might know him. Any Italian subscribers, maybe I'll do pitch in about what to look out for him. I actually don't know that name at all. But Lamaro is certainly playing good rugby at the minute, as well as Negri. I did see there was a whole thing about an Italian A team, which has already been announced to play. Was it Uruguay or something else going on sideline? So I'm not sure how many of those players are going to be affected by not being in this game. I saw that post up the other day. I'm not really sure what was going on there. So they might be missing a couple of players here, but this is, you're slowly beginning to see that shape of that 1-to-8 beginning to pull together. Moving forward towards the backs then, Stephen Varney and Paolo Garbisi. This is the combo. I believe the Italian coaches are beginning to sort of favour them most now. Garbisi's still a young lad, but is playing really good rugby. And you think if he had enough support around him, you could really see them begin to open up a bit. Garbisi, unfortunately, just tends to not have a lot of people to rely on, tends to play, you could argue, a bit selfishly, but I don't think it's so much selfish as he doesn't quite have the talent around him sometimes to be able to pull off what you want to be seeing. So hopefully they can get behind him there and work together. In the centre partnership, Marco Zanon and Ignacio Brex. So no Canna in there, but Zanon and Brex together can work well together. I mean, Ignacio Brex, again, the more that I watch from him, again, just struggles to be so much more attacking. I see him as the defensive 13, sort of similar to like a Jonathan Davis. Really tries to hold that defensive line really strong, and then if he can make a little breakaway, does try it. Zanon is very much the opposite. He's all attacking for me, and the defence can be where he can struggle a little bit, and I wonder whether or not a couple of those New Zealand centres will just target at him. And then finally this back three, Montana Ioane, Federico Mori and Matteo Minozzi. So no Trula, which I don't think is a terrible thing. I think this is probably a better setup for them. Monty Ioane playing good rugby. Again, quick. It's going to be a fierce battle on that wing between him and Sevu Reece. I think I might favour Sevu Reece there just in terms of strength. I'm not sure if Ioane's defensive work will be able to hold up too much against that. But Federico Mori and Minozzi back in that 14-15 angle, I think they'll work well together. As a 1-to-15, it's a pretty strong 1-to-15. As I said before, you can definitely see it beginning to take shape now from what they used to play in the Six Nations. As we move towards the end of this game now, we better move on to the replacements. Bigi at 16, Nema at 17, and Casarelli. There's a couple of names here that I'm actually not familiar with. This is quite nice to see. Hopefully Italians are beginning to get a bit more joyful about having a slightly larger depth in squad. That'll be nice. Canone and Rutza in that 19-20. So that'll be the team probably more likely you'd be wanting to see starting in these sorts of games. But a nice little bolster to come on in that second half. Bram Stain going to be in there as well now on the 21 shirt. So splitting up the backs and forwards, they know New Zealand are going to bring some power, so they've had to split it up 6-2 in terms of forwards to backs on the bench. I don't think it's a terrible move, but you definitely want to have some backs nice and fit for that second half, as Wales will know as it begins to get away from you in that second half. And finally, Callum Brayley and Carlo Canna. So between them, wingers are the only real issue for me here. They've got a replacement scrum half, replacement centre and fly half in Carlo Canna. But definitely if any wingers or fullbacks would get injured, you could be able to see them struggle a little bit. I guess maybe you could ask for Garbisi to move to one of those positions and put Carlo Canna on at 10. That's always another angle, but I think it could be a tough game. I will definitely want to be keeping this between the forwards, but New Zealand will be looking to spread it wide. So in terms of a score prediction, I mean, if it's the score we see on the board right here, I think Italy would be pretty happy with a 21-5, but I don't think it's going to get in there. For me personally, I'm going to call a New Zealand win here, and I think it could be hefty. Unfortunately, they beat Wales by 38, and I actually thought Wales played a little bit better than I expected them to. This is a much more first-string Italian team. I wouldn't be surprised if we see about a similar amount, so my prediction for this game, I'm going to say 30, or 30, I'm going to say between 35 and 40. I'll say 37. Let's split the difference. But that's going to be my call for today, guys. But of course, I am just one man on the internet talking nonsense about rugby. So make sure you drop down in the comments who you think's going to win, what you think the score difference would be, who to watch out for, and your opinion on who's going to be the key players in this game. I always enjoy reading through the comments. And if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel, as we will be doing one of these videos for all of the Autumn Internationals as they go on. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.